everyone to my talk, Surprise! Svelte secretly sending signals. Before we begin, a small presentation is due. So, who am I? I am Paolo Ricciuti. I come from Campobasso, Italy. You can find me on Blue Sky as paolo.ricciuti.me or on GitHub as Paolo Ricciuti. I am a Svelte ambassador and a Svelte maintainer, and I work as a senior software engineer at Mainmatter, which is super cool because I get to work with Svelte, but also to talk about Svelte, both at meetups or conferences, but also in my day-to-day job, because we do what's called team augmentation, which means that we join your project next to you. We teach you Svelte, we help you hire, we work on your project on best practice and to best architect your solution in the best way possible. We even launched a Svelte subscription service so that if you are not ready for a full project, you can just basically hang out with us in our Slack, ask us questions, even have a 2-hour a week call with us that you can just ask us to do something like fix a bug or review a PR or make a big decision with you. So if you're interested, check it out at mainmatter.com. And now it's demo time, because this will be a 100% live coded talk, because apparently I hate myself. So let's switch to VS Code when we are met with the most useless demo. This is very easy. It's just an input. I can write, Frontend nation, and it will be reflected here. And then there is a counter, which doesn't work, because if you want the counter to work, you need to keep the party going, and then it works. So this is quite easy, and what is powering this reactivity is this writable store like this. So this is how you could use reactivity outside of a Svelte component in Svelte 4, and it's quite easy. As you can see, it's 20 lines of code, and even to use it is quite easy. Basically, you just declare the writable, you subscribe to it, and you register a callback that will be called whenever the state changes. And to change the state, you actually do just state.update or state.set. So it's quite easy, not the most convenient way, and we will fix it. But in Svelte 5, we actually released runes, which under the hood uses signals. And the paradigm is a bit different from the observer pattern, which is what you are seeing here. But at the end of the day, they are closer than you may think under the hood. And so the plan is to actually write a reactivity system from scratch that uses signals to showcase how easy it is to build and how similar they are to a writable store. So let's explore how a writable store works. You have an initial value like this, and you store it, and then you have a list of subscribers, a set, which at the end of the day is just basically an array with no duplicates. And when you subscribe, so when you call subscribe, you register this function in the list of subscribers. You invoke the function, and then you return a function to unsubscribe. And when you set something, so when you change the state, you pass the new value in, the value is updated, and then we just loop over every subscriber and call the function that we stored. So pretty easy. Update is even simpler, just calling the function that you pass in with the old value and then calling set with the return value of that. Very easy. However, as I was saying, this is not the best way to update state. And obviously in Svelte 4, you had a way to do it at compile time, the compiler will compile your store to that. But in JavaScript file, you actually had to do something similar. We can make it better. So let me introduce to you a very wonderful API called the proxy API. So the proxy API is just an API available in JavaScript, and that takes an object as input, just like name Paolo, for example, and then it takes another object, and this object contains a series of traps. And just like a proxy in the network sense, this basically allows you to interject and change the behavior, in this case of object operations. For example, you can have the get trap, and the get trap get a target and a key, and then basically you can just return target.key, and this is the default behavior. But you can also do other stuff. So for example, console.log getting key. And now if I do something like console.log p.name, you can see that in the logs here, I get getting name and then I get Paolo. And obviously, like I could do something like 42, and this will actually return 42. So this is pretty powerful. What we are interested in, though, is the set trap. So the set trap is similar, but you also get the value. And this is invoked whenever you set something on an object. So you need to return true from here, but then you can do something like setting key to value, like this, and then you can just do target.key is equal to value. And if I try to do p.name is equal to 42, I can save, and you can see that I'm getting setting name to 42, and then name is actually 42. So you can see how I'm going with this, because what we can do is we can change our writable to use a proxy. So we can just, return a new proxy, and we can use the initial value here, and we can pass the series of traps. We don't need to store the value itself, because if you pass an object and you modify the property of that object, you already have a reference to that object, so you can just use that instead of getting the callback, the new state inside the callback itself. And so what we need to do is just create a set trap that takes the target, the key, and the value, and then it just so we do target at key is equal to value, and we loop over our subscribers, and we invoke the function. We can remove the target here, and that's basically it. There's only one thing left that we need to do, and it's also create a subscribe function, because we don't have a subscribe method anymore, like a subscribe return value. So for the moment, let's just do something very dirty. Please don't do this at home, but we can just return a function together inside an array. And we can do this. We can accept this function in and remove the value from here. Obviously, now we also need to make this work inside our bottom code. So we can do subscribe like this. And obviously, whenever we were using state.subscribe, we can change to just use subscribe. And we can also remove this first argument here. We also need to change every $state to just use state. And now the fun part, because we get to remove this weird code here and just do state.count plus equal 1 and remove all of this. And we get to do state.checked is equal to e.target.checked and remove all of this. And we get to do state.value is equal to e.target.value and remove all of this. So if we did everything correctly, now that I save, this should just work the same and be happy with it, right? So obviously, like, this is not the best DX. We will fix that. But one thing that I want to show you is that before fixing the DX, if I do console.log checking here, and I save, you can see that I'm getting the checking log here. And obviously, like, if I check on here, like, count really shouldn't be a dependency of this, because, like, as long as checked is still false, it will not actually change, but it can be, right? For the moment, let's say that it's fine. Obviously, if we switch to check, it will rerun this code. But the most annoying thing, in my opinion, is that if I try to change value, it's still checking, it's still running this code, basically. Which is annoying, because, like, we are not using state.value anywhere inside here. The problem, obviously, is that our subscribers, so the function that we run whenever state changes, is just one single set. It's not one set per key. So we should really change that. How can we do it? Well, we should change this to a map. And a map is basically just an object. It's basically a way to track a string, and to each string you can get an object. And you can use a string or you can use whatever you want. But basically it's just an object, a fancy object. And we can get, for example, some keys as input, so an array of keys. And what we can do is we can loop over every keys. And if our subscriber does not has a key already, we create a new set. And then we move this in and we do subscribers.get.add. So we get the subscribers of the key, and then we add the function to the subscribers of that specific key. Obviously, we need to still run the function, and then when we return, we need to loop over every key of keys, and we need to subscribers.get key, delete the function. So that's it. We also need to change this. Instead of just looping over every subscriber, we can do spread of subscribers.get key, and in this case the key is coming from the set. And let's say that we don't have anything, we can just default to an empty array. So if we did this, we need to update our writable subscribe with an array of the keys that we are interested in. So in this case, checked and count. And we also want to update this with checked. And we also want to update this with value. Now that we have done this, and if we save, this should still working, and it's working. But now the nice thing is that if I click here, obviously I'm checking again because I'm changing count. But as you can see, like if I'm changing this, I'm not rerunning this code only when value changes. So this was pretty cool already. Obviously, like we are getting, like our DX is getting worse by the time, by the minute. So let's try to change this because the best way actually would be to have a different API, because in this way, basically the subscribe function is very tied to the writable function itself. So if let's say that I want to move these to have different states, I cannot use different states in the same subscribe function. So the better way would actually be to have an external function that is not tied to this. And we still need a way to define the keys. Specifically, like what I want, if you see, is that whatever I read inside this function should be one of the key that has that function as a dependency. And we already know that we have a way to know which key we are reading with the get function, so the get trap. So what we really need to do is something like this. We have the target, we have the key, we just return target.key, but basically here we want, like, if we are running in a function, we want to add that function as a subscriber. However, like, how can we do this? Like, how can we know in which function I'm running? There's no such API in JavaScript, but we can cheat. Since functions are first-class citizen in JavaScript, we can create an external function, so $sign effect, for example. And if you're using Svelte 5 already in production, you know what I'm getting at. That takes a function as input. And so what we can do is we can have a global variable, current effect, which starts as null. And then what I can do is I can say current effect is equal to function. Then I can run the function, and then I can reset current effect to be null. So basically this way, whenever this function is running, current effect will be populated with this function. So I know that if the current effect is populated, it means that I'm running within current effect. So what we can do here is if current effect. So if we have a current effect, we basically do the same thing. So if subscribers has key, if it doesn't have keys, we set the key to new set, then we get the key and we add current effect to the subscribers list. We can also rename this to $state, maybe to get it closer to the actual API. And now we can actually get rid of the first function. We can just remove this, we can remove this, and now we just return the proxy. So we don't need this subscribe anymore. And we can just run everywhere we use subscribe, we can just do $effect. Obviously, we need to also remove this second parameter, but if we did everything correctly, everything should still work the same. So we actually got this working. That's it. Bye-bye. I'm joking. There is one problem. So if I increase this, you can see that when I switch, it's working. It seems to be working, but now when I click on the button, it's not working anymore. The only way that I have to update it is I need to uncheck it and then check it again. So why is this? Well, because effectively, the function that I'm running whenever state changes is just function. It's not this function. So basically, when I rerun the function, when count changes, I am running this function here when checked changes. But since I have not read count initially, count does not have a dependency like on this effect. Subscribers does not include these functions. So why is this? Because when I run again that function, current effect is null because I only set current effect the first time. This is actually a very easy fix. I can just do function actual effect, can declare this function. I can move everything inside this function. Obviously, I need to call this function. And now, instead of setting current effect to be this function, I set current effect to be actual effect. So that this subscriber, so the thing that we rerun when the state changes, is actually this whole function. So every time we rerun, before we set current effect to actual effect, then we run the function, and then we set it again. So if we save, now you can see that this is still working. I can click on this, and then when I click, it's actually working. And now I can also continue to checking. There's still one small problem though. If I switch back, it's fine that I'm running checking again, but now count should not be a dependency again, because instead it is. Count still has this function as a subscriber. And the reason for this is because we are never cleaning up our subscribers. We are never removing a function from the list of subscribers. But when should we remove this from the list of subscribers? Well, if you think about it, it's fine to remove every function, whenever this effect reruns, before it reruns, it's fine to remove this effect from the dependency of every signal. So I remove it from checked and I remove it from count because it's fine. And it's fine because if I rerun this function, then I will register a dependency again. So the nice thing about this is that then I will only register a dependency on the state that I actually read. So if I don't read count because checked is false, then I will not have a dependency on count. How can we do this? Well, we need to store somewhere on the effect, the effect needs to be aware of all the subscribers that have this effect as a dependency. How can we do it? With a set. So const deps is equal a new set. And now, instead of just storing the function, we can store an object where the function is actual effect. And we also send the deps. And now, here, we add current effect.fn, and we get the deps of the subscriber, so the current key dependencies. And what we do is we store the current effect function in the dependency of the key, but we also do current effect.deps.add deps. So basically we store in the current effect the fact that this set has the current effect as a dependency. So now basically inside this set here, we have all the sets that have this actual effect as a dependency. And so what we can do is before actually running, we run over every dependency. We delete the actual effect here. And then just for good measure, we do deps.clear. We clear every dependency here, and then we rerun the effect. So basically this dependency set will remove this actual effect from every key, will clear itself, and then by running the function will populate this dependency again, and will also populate every dependency of every signal that is actually read. So now we actually are at the ending of this, because now this is working. This is not a dependency. And if I switch, it is a dependency and I can increase it. But if I switch back, it's not a dependency anymore, which is very cool because we are basically never wasting compute time to run something that it will not actually change the DOM. So this is pretty cool. There is one thing left that we need to do. If I do this and I do state.value is equal to frontend nation, like this, and I save, now the moment I touch anything, I cannot type anymore. The reason for this is because as of today, as of this moment, every effect is synchronous, which means that by the time we reach this line here, every effect already ran. So you change the state, and by this time, this effect already ran. And so in this effect, we are setting input.value is equal to state.value. And so now when we read the input.value here on this line, it's already frontend nation, so I cannot type anymore. This is not good. Also because if we do it synchronously, it means that if you are changing the same state multiple times, you will run this code multiple times, and it's no bueno. So how can we fix this? Very easy, with a set. So we can do const to run is equal a new set, like this, and then we can do function schedule, and we have let is scheduled is equal to false. And so inside this schedule function, we set is scheduled to true, and then we queue a microtask. So this means that our effect will now run on the next microtask. We loop over every function inside the set of to run, and then in the end we do to run.clear and is scheduled false. Now the only thing that we have left to do is here, if is scheduled, we schedule, and then we do to run add function. So by doing this, we are basically running every effect in the next microtask, and this is actually working. There's some problem here that I'm not sure. Is scheduled. If it's not scheduled, then we schedule, and now this is actually working, and everything works fine. Now, just as a recap, now you know how signals work under the hood, and you can use it to fix your usual problem. For example, if sometimes you think that count should be a dependency of this effect because it's used inside the effect, now you know that you only register a dependency when you actually read the value. So that's why initially count is not a dependency and you're not logging. Another thing, let's say that you do something like this and you do async and you await 42, for example, if you save, you can see that now this is working, but this is not working anymore. And now you know why, because when you do await, this code that actually reads the variable runs on the next microtask. So this means that when you do this, you run the function, and when you run the function, inside this function, you are waiting a microtask. Since this is not awaited, current effect will be null by the time this code runs. And since this is the code that needs to run to check if there is a current effect is already null by the time it reaches this code. And if you remove the await, everything continues to work fine. Now, obviously, this is grossly simplified. There's a lot of stuff that are actually much more performant in Svelte, but like the main gist is this, and you can use this model to fix your problems whenever you're using Svelte. So I hope that you learned something, and if you have any question, I'm here for them.
Hey, thanks again for the talk. Of course, we have questions.
Yes.
Let's say with a very common one. If people are transitioning from another framework to Svelte 5, how can they get the most out of signals based on reactivity?
Well, I think that like the best thing about Svelte is the fact that it's very, very close to like HTML and JavaScript. Like it's as close as possible to HTML and normal JavaScript. So I think the best suggestion is just go with it. Don't like overthinking because something that we see a lot is that like people, for example, coming from React, like they tend to use the same patterns that are kind of required in a React application, and simply they are not in Svelte. So like just go with the vibes.
Okay, yeah, probably following a few tutorials that we have to just get started with every piece of every feature, because I saw that the guide is very well made. I'm coming from the Viewland, so good docs, good tutorials is very important. And Svelte has
I think
exactly
that
that.
Vue
So,
is also
yeah.
pretty similar to
Yeah.
Svelte, but in terms of the actual reactivity system under the hood, I think someone in chat was actually pointing out that this is kind of the same reactivity system that Vue uses under the hood, and it probably it's very close to what Vue Vapor will use, and it's already what Vue is using, with the difference that like Vue is only using the signals to use like to get a signal to then diff the virtual DOM in the current implementation, and that will
Yeah,
change.
it's more like, do you prefer the green or orange color at the end of the day?
Yeah. And so
So,
like, you'll have a great time if you try.
do you have any debugging strategies for signal-based reactivity?
So specifically in Svelte, like the signal-based reactivity, like you've seen how it works, and specifically because everything is triggered in the next microtask, can be a little daunting to debug, because like you kind like being in the next microtask, you kind of lose track of like the original track, the original stack trace. At least in Svelte, we do have some good debuggability like tools. We have the inspect rune that allow you to like log something whenever some rune, like some stateful variable changes. But what my preferred way is actually the inspect.trace rune, and you can put inspect.trace basically inside an effect or inside derived, and it will log every time some reactive state changes, and it will basically tell you, hey, these are all the dependency of this effect, and these are all the dependency of this derived, and this is what changed that actually triggered the rerun of this effect. And we are actually planning, like there's currently a PR open to actually improve this so that you actually get the name of the variable to like.
Okay, so that way you can pinpoint a bit more precisely. Yeah, I haven't. One thing, I haven't used the dev tools of Svelte. I'm not sure how good they are. Are they very much used, or do people just prefer using runes?
For Svelte 5 is actually like, since it was a big rewrite, we are actually in the process of
perfect.
We just hinted about. I think there is a GitHub discussion, but we are in the process of creating some like brand new like developer tools, which are kind of inspired by the Astro dev tools, but also by the like Vue and Next dev tools. Like, so
at the end of the day, it's just like a big family cross frameworks. So you can just hijack the code.
We are reaching the singularity.
Exactly. Maybe last one. How do signals affect composition, component composition?
I think that they actually increase the composition power, because like one of like as you've seen in the talk, like in Svelte 4, if you wanted to write some reusable like utility, you basically had to use stores. There was no other way of doing it. So with runes instead, it's very easy to write reusable logic that you can use all over your components and like or publish as a library. In terms of component composition, is actually like the same like vibe. So
is it the same when we talk about Svelte and SvelteKit? Are there like big improvements?
In SvelteKit, SvelteKit at the end of the day, like, is just using Svelte as a UI framework.
Okay, but it doesn't bring any extra complexity per se.
Not any extra complexity. It will actually like increase the granularity of updates, because, for example, before, to get some information from the meta framework, like, okay, on which route I am, you could import the page store, and now that page store is actually the page rune. And the page rune, not the page rune, the page state, because a rune is the symbol. It's a page rune. Again, it's the page state, and that is much more granular. So, like, if you are reading that, you are just updating when that specific value changes. And we also plan to make some other, like, now that we have this power of runes, we actually plan to make some new utility for SvelteKit that will like I think it's actually released, like we released some hint at Svelte Summit, so I can actually talk about it. Like,
teaser.
We plan to like work something about RPC calls, and so that would be very cool in terms of like data fetching and data loading.
Okay. Thanks a lot. That was actually a trap question, because I already knew the answer, because I heard a lot of good things from the move from Svelte 4 to 5, thanks to Scott Tolinsky. He's praising it a lot, so I also heard a lot of good things about the rewrite.
Scott is also a Svelte ambassador. And
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Also, I love the timing of this talk, because I just finished Arcane Season 2. It's all about runes, and yeah, that's like perfect timing. I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks a lot for this talk.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for showcasing all the good
Sorry
things.
Sorry for the change of location, but like I technically, like today, I also speak at another conference, so I'm in the other room, and I was not able to join live.
Okay, I mean, no problem. And it's very nice that you were able to do both at the same time. That's quite a lot of commitment. Thanks a lot.